Tonight's top 5 video is another request from OAW faithful and OAW patron Khalil Young. Salute to you, sir. And if you have a request for a top 5 list that you would like to see done right here on OAW Entertainment, become a patron at patreon.com/OAW and select the top 5 tier. For just $15, not only do you get your request for a top 5 video, but you also get access to all Patreon exclusive content, the OAW Vault, and you get an invite to join in on the live monthly Q&A held right here on the OAW YouTube channel, as well as the OAW Facebook page. So once again, that is patreon.com/OAW and select the top 5 tier. And with that being said, this is going to be my top 5 favorite Rurouni Kenshin characters. Let's get it started.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
Greetings, everyone watching live and everyone watching after the fact. Shout out to the faithful and salute to the patrons. This is Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, here to bring you all another top 5 video segment. And tonight, once again, another huge shout out to OAW patron Khalil Young for his request for me to follow up with my top 5 favorite Yu Yu Hakusho characters with top 5 favorite Rurouni Kenshin characters. He like, yo, Larry, man, let's go ahead, let's knock these out. So I'm like, all right, man, I'm all about that. So I'm going to give you all my list. If time permits, I'll see about getting some questions and comments in. But if you want to make sure that your question or comment gets read live right here before the end of tonight's broadcast, you can always drop a super chat. You can also show support for the channel via Cash App and PayPal. Link to both of those are in the description box below. So I'm going to go. Okay, so yeah, let's just go ahead and let's get ready to kick off this list. So for those of you all who are familiar with the channel, familiar with my content, whatnot, you guys know I'm a huge Rurouni Kenshin fan. It's my second favorite anime of all time. Love the series, love the anime. Even though the English dub isn't the best dub, we take what we can get. But yeah, love the anime, love the manga. Samurai X Trust and Betrayal, which is one of the original video animations, is one of my all-time favorite films, probably number 2 on my list, all-time favorite film. I love Samurai X Trust and Betrayal. Samurai X Reflections is also really good as well. And I'm even a fan of Samurai X The Motion Picture, which is total filler, but I love it anyway because I love the franchise. You know what I'm saying? Love the series. And so yeah. So my man Khalil, he knew that. And he was like, Larry, dude, let's go ahead. Do your top 5 favorite characters. Now, I get the feeling that a lot of my viewers are going to already know who's on my top 5. You guys might not know the order, but I'm pretty sure you guys will be able to figure out who my top 5 are, right? But anyway, we're going to go ahead. We're going to get into it and yeah, see what you all think. All right, so let me begin. So starting off with number 5 on my top 5 favorite Rurouni Kenshin characters is none other than Lord Aoshi Shinomori. Yeah, Aoshi comes in at number 5. So okay, I'm gonna do a little brief recap for you all. For those of y'all who might not have never seen the series, or for those of y'all who haven't seen it in a while, I'll kind of recap you all with each character. So Aoshi Shinomori is one of the first big antagonist that we get introduced to in the series. I won't go as far as to say he's the villain, just because the storyline in which Aoshi is introduced, Ayoshi's not the one in charge of what's going on. Aoshi is the leader of the Oniwaban group, who is pretty much a group of ninja. They're a group of shinobi. And they fought in the Bakumatsu, during the Warring States era, opposite Kenshin, because they fought against the Imperials and whatnot. And when they're introduced into the series, they're hired by a thug, essentially, a mobster, to not only provide muscle but also provide protection for. That's during the Miss Megumi story arc, where essentially Megumi is being stalked by this mobster, Kanryu Takeda, who wants to use her in order to develop opium for this pretty much drug this drug ring that he's trying to get started. And so he hires the Oniwaban group so they're supposed to be muscle because he's using them in order to try to intimidate Miss Megumi into working for him, but then they're also supposed to provide protection for him. And by the time Kenshin and the crew get involved in the conflict, then it's sort of like, yeah, the Oniwaban group not too concerned with Kanryu anymore, because they're going up against Kenshin, they're going up against the legendary Batosai, the strongest of the imperialists, and so it becomes like a sort of a personal pride thing for them to be able to defeat Kenshin. And that goes all the way until Aoshi finally has his showdown with Kenshin. And that's what it's all about. For him, he's like, look, dude, it's like Oniwaban Group is the baddest band on the planet. I'm the leader of the baddest band on the planet, and now I get the opportunity to go against the strongest opposition, quite possibly the greatest warrior there ever was, and definitely the greatest one I've ever fought. So if I can take you down, I will submit myself as being the baddest man on the planet. That's sort of what Ayoshi's stick is. Now, granted, the thing is, what happens with the Oniwaban group in that story arc is pretty messed up. Still one of the most messed up things I've seen in an anime to this day. Still one of the most messed up things. And, Aoshi pretty much has to sort of like carry on their legacy and whatnot, right? Going into the Kyoto arc. But even the role Aoshi plays in the Kyoto arc, once again, he's not necessarily a villain, but he is an antagonist because he's a foil for Kenshin. But in the Kyoto arc, though, even though Aoshi temporarily aligns himself with Shishio, for him it's still personal. It's still about settling the score with Kenshin, right? And so there is that whole question, sort of that conflict Aoshi wrestles with during the Kyoto arc, where it's like, he kind of loses his way. Because he's so fueled by like revenge that he kind of loses what it means to be a warrior in the first place. So he sort of has to, get back in touch with that. And then, of course, his whole crisis of motive, because by the time he does get to fight Kenshin in the Kyoto arc, Kenshin asks him multiple times, "What are you fighting for? Do you even know anymore?" So even that whole thing has to be reconciled. But all in all, Aoshi is an interesting character. He's a really interesting dude. I dig, well, first off, his legend, the whole backstory with him, like what he was the leader at, like, dude, essentially Aoshi is like this series Itachi for all of my Naruto fans out there, because he's a shinobi. He became leader of the group at 13, so he's like a young genius prodigy. He's quiet for the most part. He's stoic. That badass trench coat he got, man, it looks like a cape and whatnot. And he always has a trick up his sleeve, because that was the big reveal with the Kodachis. Oh man, dude, that was such a cool reveal, because throughout that first story arc, you just see him sort of carrying this like bow staff, and then you find out like he opens it and it's a sheath for two Kodachis. It's like, dude. Yeah, Aoshi is really cool. He's really cool. He was all like, Aoshi was an instant favorite of mine when I got into the series. So that's why he's number 5 on my list. He's just awesome. He's awesome. All right. So number 4 is going to come to a surprise. Is going to come as a surprise to no one. Number 4 on my list is none other than Makoto Shishio, who is the main villain of the Kyoto arc. And some fans would even argue the best villain in the series. I'm one of those. I would argue Shishio's the best villain in the series. Some would even argue he's one of the best villains in shonen anime and manga, which I'm one of those too. I think if you make a top 10 list, Shishio should be on there somewhere. Yeah, Shishio is awesome. Shishio is awesome. So Shishio's backstory. Essentially, Shishio is, or he was. Shishio was Kenshin's successor in terms of being the Hitokiri Batosai, which is the manslayer, right? The chief assassin for the Imperials during the Bakumatsu. When Kenshin finally leaves the war, Shishio is the one that takes his place. And when the war comes to an end, and essentially what happens is the imperial government, the new Meiji government, what they did was they decided to take out the people, the weapons that they used during the war, the people that they thought would be too dangerous once the Meiji government came into power. And Shishio was one of those people. So it's another one of those stories. What I really like about Rurouni Kenshin, which is really cool. Granted, it's historical fiction, so that's another thing too, right? Because it's fictionalized accounts of a historic time, right? But the thing I love about it is like how critical it is when it comes to the politics in the series, because just because Kenshin was one of the Imperials does not mean that, and because he's the hero of our story and our main protagonist, does not mean that the Imperials are the default good. Like the the Meiji government is criticized and scrutinized multiple times throughout the course of the series just because of all the messed up things they've done to other people. Um, because, like, for an example, I just brought up what happened to Shishio, but you also take in consideration like what happened with the Sekihotai and so and Sanosuke, and what happened with that group, and then what happened with some of the other characters, right? And so, but Shishio is sort of the I mean, dude, that's sort of the one that you can't ignore, because if you take in consideration this, that could have very easily had been Kenshin, right? If he had stayed in the war long enough, right? But so yeah, it was essentially, because I think it said even in one of the episodes, it's described like this, right? It's like, oh, the imperial government, they created these monsters that they needed in order to fight their war. And then once they no longer needed those monsters, they tried to exterminate them. And that's what happened to Shishio, right? Like he was double crossed, he was burned alive, left for dead, but he ended up surviving, and he pretty much made it his life purpose from that point forward to dismantle the entire Meiji government, to bring the whole government down on its head. And up until the Kyoto arc, he was fairly successful at that, because Shishio was able to first off amass a private army of probably the most formidable warriors in Japan, right? Then all the other affiliations he had throughout the whole country, all of the agents and stuff he had, right? In order to pull off, a national uprising, a coup, essentially, right? But then take this in consideration too, man. Shishio and like Seijuro and some of those other agents, dude, like when they were able to assassinate like politicians and law enforcement officials and military personnel, like high ranking officers. So, Shishio was not to be fooled with, dude. Not only was he a formidable, swordsman in his own right, because Shishio arguably is probably the third or fourth strongest character in the entire series, right? Like he's top five strongest character in the series, right? But I mean, dude, like his cunning. Oh my dude, Shishio was playing chess while everybody else was playing checkers. Which is kind of funny too, because I made the same comment about the character of Shinobu Sensui in my top five favorite Yu Yu Hakusho characters video, right? And if you guys have seen some of my previous videos, I've talked about those characters sort of in that same vein. Because they are very alike, in the sense that not only are they incredibly powerful, but they are the most like intelligent, the most cunning, the most strategic, the most ruthless, and they and the most, I don't want to say like apocalyptic, but well, yeah, no, maybe that is the term. Yeah, maybe that's the term, because they want to just like clean slate it, right? Yeah, they're very much about burn the bridges and salt the earth, scorched earth. Yeah, these are some scorched earth characters, no pun intended. But yeah, but dude, but Shishio is great. I mean, oh, a very intriguing character. His whole philosophy about like strength, because Shishio is very much a proponent of Darwinism at its finest. Only the strong survive, because Shishio's whole thing is, um if you're strong, you live. If you're weak, you die. Like that's the mantra that he has, right? And everything he does is based off of that mantra, and he stands behind it, and he embodies that, right? Because the only people he keeps in this company are the strongest individuals. Any type of weakness, anything he perceives as a weakness, he instantly cuts it out. And the way that philosophy informs his opinions about like Kenshin, right? Because he has this relationship with Kenshin, right? And the way he thinks about how Kenshin was versus what Kenshin is now, what Kenshin stands for, the fact that Kenshin's become a pacifist, with the whole reverse blade and all that jazz. Like, Shishio is that perfect opposite. He's that perfect mirror for Kenshin, for what Kenshin could have become. You know, yeah, it's just fascinating. And of course, one of my favorite, if not probably my favorite English voice actor, Stephen Bloom, does the voice for Shishio, and he's freaking amazing in this, as he is always. So yeah, that's why Makoto Shishio, is number 4 on my list. I already see some people trying to figure out what my number 1 is. You guys should already know what my number 1 is, but I like the guesses that's coming in so far. Feel free in the chat, guys. If who y'all think my number 1 is. I think y'all already know, but anyway, go ahead, drop it below. All right, so here it comes. Number 3. Number 3 on my list is none other than the man himself, Hajime Saito. Um, what can I say? Okay, so real quick, let me throw this out there. So Hajime Saito, is actually this character is actually based off of a historical samurai by the same name. Even as far as like the backstory for Saito, right? The fact that he was, a captain of the Shinsengumi, that eventually, after the war, he would end up becoming a police officer under the under the alias Vujita, and some of the philosophy that he had, and some of the things that he taught to his fellow swordsmen and things like that. Like, there's a lot, clearly. Watsuki, Nobuhiro Watsuki, the creator of Kenshin, like, clearly he is referencing that historical figure very, very heavily. And I'm not sure if it's a matter of adaptation or if it was done for the sake of homage, but you can tell he has a reverence for that figure. And but I love Saito. I love Saito. I love how Saito is. Remember what I said about Shishio, and how in his backstory, right? How the imperial government essentially created these monsters in order to fight this war, right? Well, what's cool about that is, or what's interesting about that is that the war in and of itself created certain people. It's very easy to make the argument the war created Hitokiri Batosai. The war is what made Kenshin what he was. But if that could be said for any character, I think Saito is the character that embodies that idea. He was the right man for the right job at the right time. He was what was needed during the Bakumatsu, because Saito has Saito is sort of like our anti-hero for the series, because he is very much he's a hero. He's a good guy. He's a good guy. But Saito is willing to go to extremes Kenshin will not. And because Saito is willing to manipulate people, he's willing to trick people, to deceive people, he's willing to intimidate people, to strong arm people, to hurt people. He is willing to do what is ever necessary to achieve his goal. And that is backed up by Saito's very dude. Saito has a very I don't want to say it's I don't want to say it's so binary as a black and white view of the world, but he is very righteous. And he has a very strong code. His code that's illustrated here in the picture, Akusokuzan, which means destroy evil absolutely or kill evil absolutely, right? Um, yeah, he's very righteous. He has he has his idea of right and wrong, and that's non-negotiable so far as he's concerned. It's like, this is right, this is wrong. Either you do right or you do wrong. And if you do wrong, you are my enemy. And there is no quarter, there is no hashing it out, no negotiation, none of that. There is no capitulation here. Saito, if you are a criminal, I am taking you out. No questions asked, right? Um so yeah, so that's really cool, right? But the other thing too is, of course, because Saito has this history with Kenshin, because of course they both they fought each other during the revolution, right? And because they were just different factions. Because remember, it's like the revolution wasn't as simple as the um the people who would end up becoming the imperial government, right? The people who would end up bestowing or implementing the Meiji Restoration. It wasn't just the Imperials versus the shogunate, right? Like that's sort of kind of like umbrella. We're making it easy for people to understand those are the two sides. But during that era, there were multiple factions that fell anywhere in between um th- those two main sides, right? And the Shinsengumi is one of those sides. They're one of those factions, right? And so yeah, so it's like, so Saito and Kenshin's history, their history is always interesting. And then also when we're introduced to Saito in the Kyoto arc, Saito sort of has similar views of Kenshin or similar opinions of Kenshin that Shishio does, because Kenshin, it's been 10 years since the war. Kenshin's a pacifist now, he's peaceful and all that stuff. And pretty much where Saito comes into the story, because remember what I just got done talking about Shishio, right? And all like how much of a threat Shishio was. Saito's like, okay, this dude's a badass. And if I have any hope to take him down, I need another badass. Oh, but Himura, can you help me out? Oh, snap, you're not the badass you used to be. Well, guess what? Um, we're kind of backed against the wall. Shishio is kicking our ass. He's gonna overthrow the government. It's gonna be hell on earth in Japan. I kinda have to force that badass out of you, Himura. Okay, so what do I need to do in order to do that? And Saito pushes Kenshin. Because that's when we get to see Kenshin sort of revert back to the Batosai, right? That's when he gets, he flips the reverse blade sword on its other side, starts fighting with the sharp end again, all that type of stuff. Because dude, Saito is very much yeah, he is a militant dude. He is a militant dude, very, very much so. But that's one of the things that makes him so intriguing. Besides that, Saito is just fucking cool. Like his whole demeanor, like his design is cool. They even took that whole like Wolf of Mibu, which is his nickname. Like Watsuki actually implied like incorporated that into the character, into like his character design, because the way his eyes are drawn and whatnot. Like the picture here, this is from the remake, but like the original, like how Saito is originally drawn, like his eyes are done like a wolf, and he sort of has like that sunken look. He has yellow eyes, for an example. Like he looks like a wolf, right? And but yeah, and he sort of acts like that, right? Like he's sort of aloof. He's kind of hanging around, waiting for the time, and then boom, boom. Whenever he sets up his prey, gets him right. Um, yeah, he is just a smooth operator, dude. I always like Saito. I always like Saito. Um, Funny enough, though, when I was watching the series for the first time, Saito was actually my favorite. Like by the time we got to the Kyoto arc, the first time I'm watching it, Saito was my favorite. He was my all time favorite. I loved him. You know, um, but that's because I had to sort of kind of come around or get introduced to the characters who are in my top two. Which let's go ahead and let's move on to number two. So number two in my top five favorite Rurouni Kenshin characters is none other than Master Seijuro Hiko the 13th. Named appropriately because, so he's Seijuro Hiko the 13th. That's his formal name, because Seijuro Hiko is a name that is adopted by the master of the Hiten Mitsurugi style. And so Seijuro Hiko, the one we're introduced to in the series, is the 13th master of the Hiten Mitsurugi style. Funny enough, Kenshin would have been Seijuro Hiko the 14th, but Kenshin didn't want to he didn't want to teach anyone Hiten Mitsurugi, because at the end of the day, it is still, a skill used to kill people. And Kenshin didn't want to do that. But let's talk about my man Seijuro Hiko. So, number two on my list all time, much like Master Genkai from my top five favorite Yu Yu Hakusho characters video, Seijuro Hiko is one of my favorite anime mentors. If I ever get around to doing a top five favorite anime mentors, he's going to be on that list. So just get ready for it now. He's one of my favorites. I always loved his character. Now, here's the funny thing, though. My introduction to Seijuro Hiko was actually in Samurai X Trust and Betrayal, the OVA that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. That was the first time I was introduced to the character, and I thought he was fascinating in that film. I love. I think what is the Joe Young? I think is his name. Is the voice actor that does him in that OVA. But yeah, I thought Master Hiko was such a fascinating character. His Granted, keep this in mind though. I do need to point this out. If you His characterization in Samurai X Trust and Betrayal is totally different than his characterization in the series. In the main series, Master Hiko is much more. He's more comical. He is like cocky and stand like he's a showman. He's very much a showman, right? He's almost like a professional wrestler, damn near, right? But he's very cocky, he's very arrogant. For the record though, with him it works. With him it works, and you fucking buy it. You want to know why? Because Seijuro Hiko in the series, dude, he is arguably the strongest character in the series. And guess what? He knows it. And guess what else? He's going to make sure you know it. And he talks, acts, everything. He knows he's the shit. He knows he's the shit. And he wants to put everybody else on notice, right? Oh, and he's vain. He's vain. He is very much concerned with his appearance. And that is a thing of pride for him, which is once again why I liken him to a professional wrestler, because all of that, the showboatiness, the arrogance, the the vanity. Dude, you know who he is? He's Ric Flair. Seijuro Hiko the 13th is Ric Flair with a katana. That's exactly who he is. And guess what? I fucking love it. Every minute I love it. I love it. Now, going back to Samurai X Trust and Betrayal, in that OVA, he's much more serious, because that OVA is told more like realistically. So like it's not as fantastical as the main series is. It's more like yeah, it's more like I don't want to say historically accurate, but it's more gritty and it's more like raw and like down to earth, right? And so yeah, Master Hiko is a much more serious character. But he instantly became one of my favorite characters just because his relationship with Kenshin and the things he tells Kenshin. Um, I reviewed Samurai X Trust and Betrayal like damn what 9 years ago now, and I talk about my favorite scene in that movie is the scene where Master Hiko and Kenshin have their big argument when Kenshin tells him that he's going to join the war. And so they're going back and forth, right? Master Hiko is, he's throwing some philosophy at him and whatnot, being very poetic, very articulate and whatnot. And um, Kenshin is just being very blunt with him. Very blunt, very direct, right? Excuse me. And so they go back and forth, back and forth. And then finally, Master Hiko tells him, he says, go down there, brand yourself a murderer. And Kenshin's like stricken, right? Like, and Master Hiko tells him, he says, murder is the only art a swordsman can truly practice. You want to protect people by murder? You'll slaughter legions just so that a few may live. Long before you were born, my sword tore asunder the lives of men. Now, yes, those were wicked men, but they were human beings first and foremost, Kenshin. So Master Hiko is pretty much telling him that regardless of whatever your motives are, you will still be committing a sin. And he's trying to make Kenshin realize that, because Hiko's whole thing, he says, he even says, I don't bestow Master Mitsurugi's teachings on you so that you can become the pawn of nefarious men. Because to Hiko, it's like that war is all politics. That's all it is. It's all politics. It's all certain men's greed. And you're going to allow yourself to be caught in the middle of something that does not concern you and rightfully shouldn't concern you, right? Because Hiko does have that sort of thing where like he has that it's not just because he's the strongest swordsman and stuff like that, but he does have that mentality that he is above what is going on with the common man. It's right down into the translation of Hitan Mitsurugi Ryu, or the Hitan Mitsurugi style is actually translated as great heavenly governed sword. Great heavenly governed sword. So there's almost like a mandate of heaven attached to that swordsmanship style. And because of that, that's sort of how Hiko views this, right? He thinks of it he thinks about it in terms of the grand scheme of things, you know. Um but yeah, like I like that scene always stuck with me. I've always loved that scene. Especially because Kenshin's retort to him was he says, well, that might be, but my sword will bring relief to people who have learned to live without hope. He says, a man who feeds upon his brother is no longer a man. He is a mad dog and should be dealt the same fate. That's Kenshin's retort. And I just thought that scene was like really, really good at establishing the dichotomy of ideologies, the dichotomy of philosophies that those characters have. Really, 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 really powerful scene. But but yeah, going back to the original series, dude. when Hiko shows up, dude, in the Kyoto arc, because he has to teach Kenshin seeks him out to learn the last technique of the Hiten Mitsurugi style, and then of course Hiko ends up joining Kenshin's team later on during the final battle. Hiko is just a stud, you know. Like I said, he's Ric Flair as a samurai, and it's awesome. It's really awesome. Just so much things I love about the character. I found it fascinating that Hiko is actually based off of a character from one of Watsuki's a one shot that Watsuki did, which is sort of like the Rurouni Kenshin one shot is like a predecessor to the main series, but also that originally this was supposed to be like Hiko was supposed to be Kenshin originally, like in terms of like the character design and whatnot, like that was supposed to be Kenshin, but Watsuki wanted to make a point. He wanted to make an unconventional protagonist, right? That's the reason why Kenshin is so short. That's the reason why Kenshin is so thin. That's the reason why Kenshin is a redhead. That's the reason why Kenshin is so old. Kenshin is 26 years old in chapter 1 at the start of Rurouni Kenshin. That was done on purpose because Watsuki wanted a shonen protagonist that wasn't like the rest of them. And yeah, Hiko looks like he came straight out of fucking Fist of the North Star, right? He very much has that look, right? And dude, if nothing else, I also found it very interesting that Wasuki went on record saying that one of the major inspirations behind Hiko's character design with his giant cape was Todd McFarlane and Spawn. He was like, yeah, like the way how the cape is like so big and almost like a living thing. It's which in Spawn we know is actually a living thing, but like how it's almost a living thing itself in the big, exaggerated, like stylized collar. Yeah, dude. Yeah, I just thought that was really cool. So yeah, Hiko's my man. I love Hiko, dude. Who doesn't, right? All right. So yeah, that's why he's number 2 on my list. One of my favorite mentors. Okay, so all right. So funny enough, guys, I actually don't have an honorable mentions tonight. Just because once again, Rurouni Kenshin is one of those series, just like Yu Yu Hakusho. There are several other characters I love. I would go as far as to say this though. So I didn't put together a list of honorable mentions, just because I thought they'd be too many. But the one character who's not in my top 5 that would definitely be like number 6 on my list is Seijuro Seda. Um, he is like or at least for me, he's the honorable mention. Seijuro Seda is such a fascinating character. Um, I don't have too much time to get into him in this video, but yeah, just Seijuro being Shishio's student and his right hand, his herald, um, and how Shishio's philosophy, how he taught that to Seijuro, how Seijuro had to kind of learn it on his own, um, and just what's kind of funny because I made the comparison between Shishio and Shinobu Sensui from Yu Yu Hakusho. The more I think about it, dude, Sojiro is much more like Sensui in terms of the way he thinks, right? In terms of like how sort of like how fixed his mentality is, because in order to allow any type of nuance into the situation, that mental stress, he wouldn't be able to cope with it, right? Just because of all the trauma that he's experienced. They're very similar in that fashion. Um, but yeah, Sojiro is just an amazing character, and yeah, he would definitely, yeah, he is my honorable mention for this series, definitely. All right, so yep, coming up on 40 minutes. So let's go ahead and let's just knock this out, shall we? All of y'all should know who my number 1 is by this time. Come on, guys. Come on. Number 1 is the man himself, the man, the myth, the legend. There ain't none better. Mr. Kenshin Himura. He is number one on my list. I felt like that. I felt like that was kind of obvious, especially since recently someone asked me in one of my previous videos, like, who's your favorite anime character or who's your favorite anime protagonist? And I say Kenshin. Instantly, Kenshin. Um, yeah, I mean, arguably Kenshin is my favorite anime character. Period. Arguably, like I said, unless you want to count Avatar: The Last Airbender as an anime, in which case it's probably Zuko. But but if we're talking about traditional shonen anime and manga, it's Kenshin. Why? Okay, first off, we have the same birthday, which is awesome. And I tripped out when I found that out. But yeah, June 20th is Kenshin Himura's birthday. Yeah, so me and Kenshin we share the same birthday, which was awesome, right? Um, but dude, Kenshin's entire story, his entire character arc, the fact that the main series is all about redemption for him, um, atonement for the people that he killed during the war, and the tragedy he suffers in his own past. Like, for Kenshin to have for Kenshin to become a pacifist the way he does, and um the way he lives out that mission, right? Um, the way he's able to be kind to other people, right? Like, I mean, like, I don't just mean, nice, and I don't just mean gentle. I'm talking about, like, Kenshin is on some legit kindness. He is a kind human being. Um he the more I'm starting to think about it, now that I'm saying all of this stuff out loud, dude, Kenshin is very, very fucking much Superman. He is very Superman. He is very altruistic in that sense. Um, he always sees the good in people. He always gives people the benefit of the doubt. He always tries to set the example. Um, he always tries his hardest. He always tries his best, right? Um, yeah, just those things alone, make him such an admirable character. And I mean, hell, dude, right down to his name, Kenshin, um, which is translated as dedication or devotion. I like devotion better because that's Kenshin's whole deal, dude. He is a fiercely loyal friend. Um, even when his friends, uh, even when they sort of stumble, and even when they make mistakes, he still, is able to forgive them and is able to see the good in them. And of course, one of the biggest things, l- liking him back to Superman, right? Kenshin defends those who are too weak to defend themselves, and he always does that. He always does that. He never allows anyone to be bullied. He never allows anyone to be taken advantage of. Um, yeah, Kenshin he's always about, protecting people. Um, and yeah, dude, it's it's such an interesting character journey. Because what's cool about it is, once again, going back to the conversation between him and Master Hiko in Samurai X Trust and Betrayal. Here's the thing. Kenshin was always like that, right? Like, all of those ideas, right? And all of those philosophies that I just mentioned that are central to Kenshin's character, he's always been like that. The thing was, though, what Master Hiko warned him about is what happened to him when he went to the war. He ceased being himself, and he just became another tool of the Imperial Army, right? He just became another tool. And in doing so, like, he was still fighting for a cause. He was still fighting for a noble cause. But it did get to the point where the ends would not justify the means. And at a certain point, uh Kenshin sort of lost himself, you know? Um yeah. And then of course, I mean, if you guys saw Trust and Betrayal, or if you read the manga and you've managed to get to the Anishi arc, the whole thing about, his first wife, Tomoe, what happened with that. Dude, very, very sad, very tragic backstory. But to see where Kenshin started and to see where he ends, I thought is just a credit to his character, you know? Um yeah, yeah. It's a credit to his character. Dude, Kenshin's the man, bro. Kenshin's the man. I mean, I'm trying to think what else can I say about him, dude. Kenshin is in many ways what I want to be when I grow up. Very, very much so. That he is. That he is. All right, so that's pretty much going to wrap up my list. So once again, we will do a quick recap for anyone just joining us. Real quick recap. Actually, let me click. Let's click back. All right, so quick recap for anyone who came in late. So for my top 5 favorite Rurouni Kenshin characters, number 5 was Lord Aoshi Shinomori of the Oniwaban group. Number 4 was Makoto Shishio. Whoops. Number 3 was Hajime Saito. Number 2 was Master Seijuro Hiko, the 13th. And finally, number 1 was the man, the myth, the legend himself, our titular character, Kenshin Himura. Yep. And that is my top 5 favorite Rurouni Kenshin characters, guys. So I want to go ahead, take this opportunity to thank everybody for joining me again tonight. Thanks everyone for tuning in. I see some people in the comments. What's happening? Obey Anime, Emmanuel Mosley, Yusuke Knight, Adam. What's happening, guys? Thanks so much for popping in, for leaving your comments, leaving some great responses. I much appreciate that. Once again, want to take this opportunity to give another huge shout out to my man, OAW patron Khalil Young. Dude, thanks again for yet again another top 5 video request. Thanks again for continuing to be a patron, supporting the channel. So much, dude. I say it, but I feel like I still don't say it enough. We wouldn't be able to do this stuff without you guys, honestly and truly. Yeah, I know I'm just sitting in front of a webcam making vids and whatnot, but seriously, guys, like, the support is massive. It's much appreciated, so much. And just a reminder to you guys who want to, support the channel, support the content, but can't do so financially. That's fine too, dude. You have no idea how much liking, commenting, sharing on social media helps immensely, dude. Helping get these videos more exposure, helping to increase the. Oh man, Brandon, dude, Brandon. What did you do, man? Oh, my man, Brandon Stark with the $50 super chat, bruh. Says, thank you for your dedication to real content. Dude, Brandon, thank you, sir. No, sir, thank you. Thank you very, very much, man. Dude, wow, that is insane, man. Much appreciated, dude. Thanks so much. But yeah, as I was saying, if you guys want to support the channel, but you can't do so financially, dude, just liking, commenting, sharing on social media, sharing on Facebook, sharing on Twitter. I'm not on Instagram, but y'all can share me on Instagram if you want. Dude, it helps immensely. It really does. Being able to spread the word, share videos, get prospective new viewers and whatnot. And of course, if you are a new viewer, first and foremost, welcome. Thank you for joining. But subscribe. And make sure you click that bell icon so you can get updated. You get alerts, notifications on all the new posts, all the new releases, all the new shows. You won't get left behind. Yeah. All right, guys. So, final reminder, I got to go ahead and throw this up real quick. Final reminder, but also, guys, if you want to request a top 5 list of your own, become a patron. Patreon.com/OAW. Select the top 5 tier. Once again, it's just $15, right? Just $15, just once a month, just $15. But not only do you get your request for a top 5 video, you also get access to Patreon exclusive content. You get access to the OAW Vault, which is the original 2 seasons of Otaku Assemble Weekly, which was the anime and manga review web series that kicked off the channel. It's not just anime and manga reviews, though. I got rants in there. We did a couple of movie reviews. We did some anime movie reviews and some OVA reviews. Lot of good stuff, dude. You're talking about, what is it, like 60, 64, 65 videos, something like that. But yeah, that's exclusively on Patreon because you can't find it on YouTube anymore. It's exclusively on Patreon. You get access to that. And of course, you get an invite to join in on the monthly Q&A that's held every month right here on the OAW YouTube channel, as well as the OAW Facebook page. All of that for just $15. And once again, even with your top 5 requests, it doesn't have to be me doing a favorite. If you guys really want to see me sweat, and if y'all really want to see me, painstakingly so, go through trying to figure out, a top 5 best anything, or maybe a top 5 worst anything, that's fair game too, man. It's all part of the top 5. If you guys request it, I got to do it. So once again, patreon.com/OAW, select the top 5 tier. Once again, I'm going to give another huge shout out to my man, Brandon Stark, for the $50 super chat, dude. Thanks so much, man. Much appreciated. I cannot stress that enough. All right, guys, real quick, we got some housekeeping to do. I got a couple announcements for you guys. Really, it's one big announcement, but I just want to put you guys on notice. So keep an eye out next week, because my schedule is changing, because I'm getting ready to start up another job. So I'm still going to be making vids. I am still going to try to commit to 3 live streams a week, right? Still going to try to commit to that. But if you guys notice, I had a manga first impressions I was supposed to do this week that I actually had to put off until next week, okay? So, but it's still happening. That manga first impressions is still happening because I already read the damn chapter, so I'm going to do the video, right? So that's still happening. But here's the thing. Next week, the schedule is going to be a little fast and loose. I am going to try and pull off 4 live streams next week. 4. And it will probably be Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Because Wednesday is actually when I start up this new job. So just keep an eye out for that. In the event that I have to push anything back, I'll let you guys know. Once again, that's going to be on Facebook, on the OAW Facebook, Twitter, and on the YouTube channel. I will let you guys know if I have to reschedule anything. As it stands right now, next week is supposed to be a movie review, that manga review, another anime first impressions, and then the monthly Q&A. But whoa, okay. The monthly Q&A is going to happen next week. That is going to happen. It's just if any of the other ones end up getting pushed until the following week, I will let you guys know. But keep an eye out. Once again, make sure if you're subscribed, ring that bell so you get notified whenever I post any updates. So stay tuned. All right, guys, it's time for me to get out here because I'm coming up on an hour and I'm tired. It's time for me to pass out. I'm probably gonna hop on Netflix and watch The Last Dance again because I love that documentary. Really great. All right, guys, I got to get out of here. This has been Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief. Once again, thank you all for joining me live, and I will catch you cats later. Peace.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?